Hey guys, how you doing? My name's Noah Dinsmore, and today we're going to show you how to drone a construction site. But before we do that, let's take a look at the gear and the equipment we use to get that done. So follow me, let's take a look. Okay, now we're going to talk about the actual drone itself, the DJI Phantom 4 Advance. It's a perfect drone for what we're doing out here today because it shoots 4K at 60 frames per second, and that's what we're shooting our whole project in. And it shoots 20 megapixel stills, which is going to give you very crispy aerial photos. Another thing on the drone I wanted to show you guys is this is an ND filter right here. This is an ND 20, and what it actually does is it's basically sunglasses for your drone. So it's going to help you better match your frame rate to your shutter speed. For example, if we're shooting 60 frames per second, we're trying to match our shutter speed to 1/125th because that's 2 times the 60 frames per second. If you didn't have an ND filter, your shot would look way too overexposed and basically white it out in the image. So I wanted to show you these right here. They're called signal boosters. They attach to the outside of your antennas right here. They just slide on, and they're gonna let you fly farther distances without losing connection. So as you can see, there's a lot of trees out here, and there's heavy machinery too. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna pierce right through the trees to give you a solid connection from your GPS the entire time. So now that we've talked about gear, let's get into the 5 techniques I use to drone this construction site. Okay, so the first technique is the photo merge. Now, you might be asking what a photo merge is. Here's an example right here. It's basically 40 to 50 images top down at 400 feet, covering the entire surface area of the construction site. Now, the most important part in that is to have enough overlap as you're going through these images. So for example, this is roughly a 6-acre site right here. Now we're not shooting exactly 6 acres, we're shooting a little bit more than that. Aside from having overlap around your entire site, you're also gonna wanna have overlap going from image to image. So we're gonna start at the bottom left of this site, and moving from left to right, we're just gonna match that rule of thirds bar on the left to the right side. All right, so as we see here, this is the site. And for the photo merge, what we're gonna wanna do is just look straight down with the tilt wheel. Go all the way down. And for me, I'm gonna line myself up with this dock over here, this brown dock. And I'm gonna use this rule of thirds grid to line myself up on the top right corner of that rule of thirds. So I'll switch to my photos, make sure we're taking them in RAW. And another thing to keep in mind is while we're taking these photos, you don't want to change any of the settings in there. You want to keep your white balance, your shutter speed, your aperture, all the same throughout these photos. So we'll take the first photo. I'm going to tap to autofocus, take the shot. Now once we have our first shot, we're just going to move the left side of that rule of thirds grid to the right side. So what I mean by that is make note of how the dock is on the top right corner of that thirds grid. You're just gonna move the left side to the right. So we'll just move to the right. And then once I bring this top left corner to the same dock, that's when I'll stop. So right about there. We'll take the photo. Boom, that's our second shot. So the main thing in taking these photos is to not try and rotate the camera at all. You want to keep it as nice and straight, moving from left to right. And also make sure you have that overlap. You'll always get the perfect overlap if you're lining up with the rule of thirds grid. Now once you're done with that row, it's the same process as before, except for instead of moving from left to right, we're just gonna line up that rule of thirds grid from the bottom to the top. So snap that photo and then mark your location on the top bar and then move your bottom bar to that top bar on the rule of thirds. So we're just moving up right about there. Snap the photo. There you go. Now go from right to left on this row and keep going until you finish the entire site. Now be prepared, because this process does take a long time to shoot these 40 to 50 images, depending on how fast you go. So you kind of want to move swiftly as you're doing these. Generally, for me, I could finish it with about 40% battery left. So I have enough time to go into my next technique, which we'll talk about right now. So now we're going to talk about technique number 2. Now, for this, what we're going to do is climb up to an elevation of about 400 feet, which is the highest legal altitude we can fly our drones at. And what we're going to do is shoot 8 images around the site. Now, in doing this, we want to make sure the site is the main subject of this shot. So what I mean by that is you don't want to have too much sky as your focus. You want to make sure, use your tilt wheel and tilt down a little bit so that your sight is fully in the frame of focus. All right, so for technique 2, we're going to take those 8 images around the site at 400 feet. This is going to be that big wide view for your client. So once you're happy with that, take your image and then we'll rotate around to our next shot. We're on the corner of this site now. We'll do the same thing. Tap to focus. We're making sure that the site is in the center of the frame, and we'll go ahead and snap that image and just continue to work ourselves around the site for the rest of that technique. So now we're going to be talking about technique number 3. Technique number 3 is similar to technique number 2, being that we're going to shoot those 8 images around the site, but except it's going to be a little bit lower. It's going to be around 50 to 100 feet. So this is the outside pointing in. We'll go ahead and snap that image, and then we'll just go ahead and rotate around to the corner. For me, I don't want to get too much blockage of the trees, so I would take it about here, and we'll continue moving around the site like so. The second part of technique number 3 is we're going to go to the center of your site and shoot 8 images around. So instead of shooting towards the site, you're going to be on the center of the site shooting out. So this is going to give you a good perspective, showing you what your site looks like from the center, pointed out. So now we'll finish up the second part of technique 3. Go to the center of the site between 50 to 100 feet and snap those 8 images pointing out of your site. All right, so now we're going to be talking about technique number 4. Technique number 4 is basically going to be the main subject or the main action of what's going on at your site right now. For example, the majority of the work going on at this site right now is just at the boat ramp. So a large part of the site, there's nothing happening at all besides what's going on right there. So we'll take the same process as before and shoot those 8 images around the main subject or the main action that's going on there, except it'll be at 20 to 50 feet. Now, flying at altitudes this low, you gotta make sure and watch out for trees, power lines, cranes, any type of heavy machinery or people that can get in the way of you and your drone. So it's really important to have line of sight to your drone at all times. So technique 4 is, again, the same principle as techniques 2 and 3, in that there's going to be those 8 images around. This time it's going to be around the main subject of your site. So for this site specifically, everybody's working on the boat ramp right now. So I'm going to go ahead and move in just a little bit closer. I'm at 50 feet, and I'll just start taking photos around this structure right here. And I'll line it up with these metal rods in the water too, just so it's a little bit more symmetrical. So there's our first image right there. So we'll just rotate around this boat ramp. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the final technique, technique number 5. It's not really anything new, but we're basically just applying all the concepts which we learned before and using video. So the main thing when shooting drone video footage is just to apply smooth cinematic movement. So that means don't zip around the site as fast as you can and trying to do all these acrobatic maneuvers and moving too fast. That's just going to make people throw up when they see your video. For example, some smooth drone movements you can apply are just a simple push in. You could use a push in with a tilt. You can use a pan. You could even do a riser with a tilt down. So for technique number 5, we're going to apply the same height and subject to our site that we use from steps 2 through 4, and we're just going to apply movement to them. So what do I mean by that? Well, we're looking at our site right here at about 400 feet. And if you remember those 8 images we took around the site, now that we're in video, we're just going to simply use movement to our shot. So go ahead and press record, and then slowly just rotate around the site. Doesn't have to be anything fast, because you don't want to jerk around while you're doing this. Just slow, cinematic, buttery movements. And I would record for about 20 seconds or so, and then stop. And that's it for that clip. So here's another example for technique 5, where we're at 50 to 100 feet right now. I'm a little bit higher because I'm trying to clear these trees again. And all we're gonna do is just do a cinematic pushing in movement with the drone, going straight forward, and then a tilt as we do that. So it's gonna slowly but surely just tilt down and look at that center of the site. So I do wanna make note that it does matter where your tilt is when you start off. You wanna have it a little bit up on the tilt versus lower, because you gotta give yourself enough time to tilt down and look at the center of the site. So let me go ahead and give you an example of what I'm talking about right now. So we'll start with our tilt up a little bit, press record, and then just move forward for about 15 to 20 seconds while you slowly are tilting down. And that's about the speed you want to tilt at. And once you practice these enough times, you'll be able to do them like nothing. Okay, that's about it for that clip. Okay, so this is our last variation right here. And as you can see, I'm near the main subject of the site right now, which is the boat ramp. Now what we're gonna be doing this time is doing a little bit trickier of a movement, but once you practice it a couple times, you'll be able to do it. It's basically just a riser where you go straight up, and then as you're rising, you're tilting down. Because if you were to just go straight up at the same tilt angle that you'd be at, you'd just be looking at the sky. So we have to use that tilt to look down at our subject. So for this move, you don't really have to go too high. I'm probably gonna go about to 100 feet or so. So let's go ahead and start this one. Press record, go straight up. As you're going straight up, you wanna tilt down. And that's it. So we're not doing anything too fancy out here. We're just simply here to document what's going on with the construction progress. So just take your time doing these movements. That's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found value in some of these techniques, and I hope you can apply them. Please follow me on Instagram at Noah Densmore, and I'd love to connect with you. Until next time, guys, thanks for watching.